everyone, it's Steve with Aptera Owners Club. Today, CNBC released this video called Why So Many EV Companies Fail. And I thought it was a really great video, so I thought that we would watch it together and kind of talk about it. All right.
Company as Titan. Dyson, the privately held British firm best known for bagless vacuum cleaners, ditched its electric car plans after it decided it couldn't make money off them.
I mean, those are two businesses coming from super high profitability, super high return on capital. I kind of agree with them. If you're going to come into automotive, you better come with some serious innovation and difference.
Bringing a car to market.
So he's saying if you're going to come, you better have some serious innovation. And I think that's where Aptera is definitely got it. They've got something going there because, I mean, they're very, very innovative, both in terms of their business plan, manufacturing plan, and of course the vehicle itself. And it's not even a car; it's an autocycle. So they have the innovation, but as you'll see as we watch the rest of this video, there are many, many problems that they face that are the same as the other EV manufacturers.
It requires a mix of engineering and design talent and ability to execute, actually securing manufacturing space and suppliers, confronting stringent and complex regulations,
so Aptera
actually bringing something new to the table.
So Aptera also kind of gets away from the stringent regulations because as an autocycle, they don't have to meet as many regulations. So that's something else that they're doing right there.
If you start with an advantage, you have the clean sheet of paper opportunities that startups have. You have to learn all these really hard things that the big automakers do. You have to learn to design, and you have to learn to build a supply chain. You have to learn to manufacture. You have to learn to sell and deal with repair.
Okay, so that's what Aptera is doing right now. They're learning how to set up a supply chain. They're learning how to design. They're learning how to manufacture, and they're gonna have to learn how to deal with how to sell and deal with repairs.
Repair and maintenance and after sales service and all that.
But above all, it takes capital.
Okay, so this is obviously the elephant in the room is capital. And Aptera needs capital, and they've been very efficient on their use of capital, but just like every other company, they're going to need more capital, and they're going to need more capital for a long, long time.
Just look at the capital returns, not the stock prices, the actual returns on capital. They're not very attractive. This is a highly capital-intense competitive industry.
Returns on invested capital for established automakers like Ford and GM are in the mid-single to low double digits. For 11 of its 15 years as a public company, Tesla's returns on invested capital were negative.
Okay, this is something that I had not realized. Maybe I knew it in the back of my mind, but I did not realize it. But just look at Tesla. Tesla did not have a profitable year until 2020. All right, so if you remember, Tesla delivered their first car in 2005. So the Roadster, 2005 to 2009. Then they had a Model S and a Model X, 2010 to 2015. So and then this is Tesla's net income and loss for fiscal year 2014 to 2023. As you can see here, 2020 was the first year that they were profitable. And if you look back at this, yeah, you see this 2010 to 2015, this was the Model X, Model S. So they were selling Model S's and Model X's, and they were losing money year on year, every year for that. So they were burning through capital basically here. And then Model 3 was 2016 to 2018. So 2016 to 2018 is here, still losing money. Model Y. So it's only very, very recently that they started making a profit. So if Aptera, so Tesla is the most successful EV company so far. And even they went on for over 15 years after they delivered their first vehicle before they were profitable. So if Aptera follows the footprints of the most successful electric car company so far, after they start delivery of their car, they're going to be another 15 years before they're profitable. Now, of course, Tesla stock prices were, the stockholders were doing very well even before they became revenue positive. But yeah, this is it's a sobering graph. Now you see that in recent years, the return on invested capital for Tesla far outstrips conventional automakers, and that's why their stock price has been extremely good.
Plain and simple, companies just run out of money.
Right, and that's what's happening with Rivian and Lucid and Fisker and a bunch of other companies now. They're running out of money.
Fisker experienced an old-fashioned cash crunch. Some of that was inherent in the capital intensity of becoming an automaker, but some of it was also due to mistakes that the company made.
Running out of capital is the biggest problem an automaker has. That might seem obvious. It is, of course, the problem every business faces. But the capital costs of starting an automaker are massive.
Yes, you're $2-ish billion to get to your first vehicle.
Not everybody.
Okay, so he's saying it takes about $2 billion to make it to your first vehicle, and that's been the case with Rivian and Lucid. And so far, Aptera is like what, 120 million into it. And of course, it's a little apples to oranges because Aptera is an auto cycle manufacturer, not a car manufacturer. But still, trying to make it to their first car with 1/10 the capital that any other car company has done is a bit of a reach. And the fact that they're seemingly able to do it so far is pretty amazing. So we'll just have to wait and see. But people have burned through $2 billion to make it to their first customer delivery. That's what Lucid did. That's what Rivian did. And that's kind of what Tesla did as well.
Everybody has $2 billion to play with. And frankly, even if $2 billion is available, that's not a guarantee of success.
That's really just the beginning.
You need to be like a shark where you're always moving or you die if you stand still. So there needs to be an ability to raise the next $2 billion and the next $2 billion after that.
And so that's a problem that Rivian and Lucid are reaching now. It's like they still need another couple billion to keep themselves solvent.
Take Rivian and Lucid.
Both of them have eviscerated $10 billion. So interesting to see these other small startups who raise $1 billion or $2 billion and they think that's enough. It's not even close.
This was a problem faced by a lot of the startups that went public using special purpose acquisition companies, or SPACs. A SPAC is a
So this is an option for where Aptera may be going traditional IPO, or they may be going IPO via SPAC. And I think they're going to go via SPAC. I'm not sure, but that is probably what's going to happen. And this is the only way for these companies to get this kind of money. And so, as you heard, Rivian and Lucid have burned through $10 billion so far.
Public shell company that merges with a private business, in this case an EV firm, and through that merger the private company becomes a public one.
There is no venture capital firm, on the planet that will write billion-dollar checks to an EV startup. So to raise that kind of money,
I mean, that's not entirely true because the Saudi Arabian Sovereign Investment Fund did write a multi-billion-dollar check to Lucid. So, I mean, they're not a venture capital firm, but that is a private investment entity.
the only realistic scenario is to become a public company.
For EV startups, SPACs came with a few advantages over the traditional IPO. For example, you could go public using projected revenue rather than just actual revenue. The SPAC promise, at least, was that these companies could turn to markets for the funding they'd need to grow.
That hasn't really been the story. It's not like retail investors dumped a bunch of money into Tesla. It was places like Daimler and others that put money in when it was needed, and then debt and other things. The companies that are pre-revenue typically shouldn't be public companies. It's very hard for a company that's pre-revenue to stay ahead of the bow wave and have people interested in investing and putting billions of dollars more into a startup.
So what are all those billions of dollars going to? To start, budget about $500 million to $1 billion to build a plant and tool it.
So Aptera is thinking they're going to be able to do this part of the whole equation for like 60 million. So that's like, again, an order of magnitude less than other companies.
Then about 200 million and $500 million on top of that in supplier tooling and another 250 to 500 million in product development costs. There are certain fixed costs associated with building and running a factory and tooling it. Once you have built and tooled a factory, you have to produce a certain number of vehicles in order to absorb those fixed costs.
The person selling the parts will say, well, look, I've got this big fixed cost. I spent $50 million to be able to make you 200,000 vehicles. You're only asking for 20,000 vehicles. I need my money. And they'd say, well, sorry, we don't have any. Like, okay, well, sorry, you don't get parts.
Then you need about $100 to $200 million a year.
So that's, the problem that Aptera is having is that they're needing suppliers to give them parts, but they don't really have the money to give suppliers, which is why it's been good, because they've been saying that they've met with suppliers that kind of believe in their vision and are wanting to go in with them. So it looks like they're doing a pretty good job of lining up suppliers that are maybe willing to take less money or stock or debt, or like, offering to work with them for without having Aptera to pay their upfront tooling costs as much. That's definitely the case with CPC, I think. I'm pretty sure that's the case with CPC, and that's the case with a lot of their other suppliers, because they have a very compelling story, and I think a lot of companies are interested in being part of the story.
Here just to keep everything running while you were waiting to launch vehicles. Once you launch, you have to put more growth capital into the business to fund the second vehicle, and possibly the second plant to build that vehicle. Companies choose different approaches. Vertical integration is basically doing everything yourself, or at least as much as possible. Another way to do things is to outsource some or most of the work. Some start with what is called a donor vehicle, basically a repurposed vehicle or a set of components from an existing manufacturer, like a chassis or powertrain. Lordstown started with a donor body on its endurance pickup truck. ELMS started with a Chinese van. This can save you the trouble of having to build something from scratch, but it can come with downsides, like the degree to which you can change the vehicle and customize it is somewhat limited. There is also the asset-light approach favored by companies like Fisker. Use outsiders like suppliers or contract manufacturers to make the vehicles you design. It might look like a company is saving a lot of money by paying an experienced outside firm to make the car in a factory already built, but costs add up. Alex Partners' Mark Wakefield says bringing a vehicle model from design to rolling reality can take anywhere from 2 to 4 times the number of hours expected.
You never design it once and it's right.
Electric vehicles escape the burden of emissions regulations, but there is still a host of other rules they have to comply with, perhaps most notably the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards, or FMVSS for short.
The barriers to entry.
So this is something Aptera does not have to comply with, but they are saying that they're voluntarily going to comply with it. So
On things like FMVSS are aggressive, are tough. And they're tough because these are things that can kill people. And kill people immediately.
But a car also has to be refined enough to comfortably drive.
And there's all these complex interdependencies around vibration and around, things that matter to drivers.
McDuffie is referring to a concept called noise, vibration, and harshness. A car maker has to ensure all of.
So this is something that, that Jason Hill and I talked about, noise, vibration, and harshness. These are things that they all know about. And this is things that Aptera is working on, and they know about it and they're tuning for it.
The components in a car are fitted together perfectly. If not, you get intolerable levels of all three.
Every automaker that's...
And this CPC thing where they have the BINC, where it's a composite structure that doesn't expand or contract and the tolerances are really tight, I think that'll probably help with this. At least that's what Aptera is saying that it's going to help with.
Ever succeeded is constantly doing a lot of this fine tuning. Tesla probably does a little less of it, and some people will complain about that. The fit and finish isn't as good, the gaps aren't so clean. things look a little shoddy. And so far, people haven't cared because they love the power, they love the big screen, they love the software.
Like there has to be a reason to buy this vehicle. And a lot of the startups were trying to be first mover. So there wasn't a tremendous amount of innovation that a consumer actually feels. More stylistically different. Some of them had challenges because the delays they had in getting to market, by that time there was other vehicles actually in the market too that were very similar, and now they weren't the first mover and the only game in town.
This is a huge source of tension.
And this is something I think Aptera is like light years ahead of everyone else on. Their vehicle is very different and has a very compelling story, and there's nothing else like it. You know, before there were Sono Motors, there was Lightyear, but now it's just Aptera. Aptera is the only solar vehicle coming out, and it's the only super efficient vehicle coming out. Lightyear was also super efficient, and that was a potential competitor, but Aptera is very different. And those people that want an Aptera, there's very little out there that's very, very similar to it.
Perhaps the fundamental problem any EV startup or any auto startup will face.
Got this dichotomy of you need to change stuff and be different, but there's a lot of tried and true that's in existing vehicle designs and approaches and validation methods that you take risk when you don't do those things. I mean, the less innovative you are, the lower that bill can be, but then the less innovative you are and different you are, the less reason there is for someone to actually care about your product and value you at anything.
Right. So Aptera is being very innovative, and I think they've hooked up with CPC, who's done this innovative thing before with the body design. So hopefully that mitigates some of that risk for them. But as you can tell from watching this video, this is a super complex, very difficult thing for them to do, especially at 1/10 the capital costs of other companies that have been doing it.
There is no exact recipe for success. US data shows EV demand is stagnating. Tesla missed even the most bearish delivery targets for the first quarter of 2024. Shares have fallen nearly 35% since the beginning of the year. Then again, rival Rivian's first quarter deliveries were better than expected. In some ways, today looks a lot like the...
Okay, so the rest of this talks about vertical integration, which I think is basically something that Aptera is not going to do, at least for the foreseeable future. You know, they're going to onshore some of the stuff with CPC and onshore some of the battery manufacturing with CTNS, but that's going to be partnership. And I think that, as you can tell from this video, there's a lot of challenges, very capital intensive. They're going to need to raise money for at least another decade, for sure. And their capex is very, very low, and they're being very efficient on the capital. So maybe they'll be, you know, they claim that the 6,000 vehicle is going to make them kind of budget neutral. So they may hit it way sooner than other car manufacturers. But it is a very, very challenging thing that they're doing. And so far, it seems like they are pulling it off. They've stayed in the game longer than a lot of other EV startups. And I think one of the things is that they have this community. We are very, very invested in it because it's something that really speaks to a lot of people, and that helps them a lot. And I think they're making a lot of smart decisions, and that they're playing that tension of trying to get to market quickly while being innovative and while not cutting too many corners. And they're playing that balance pretty well. And they're getting the right partners and suppliers that believe in them. So, you know, I think this video, you should watch the whole video. Does show exactly what a challenge it is, and why so far Tesla is the only successful company in the EV space that has that's kind of out of the woods. And even they are having some, you know, small problems recently. But, you know, the other two big players have been Rivian and Lucid. Rivian seems to be doing a little bit better than Lucid, but they, you know, like they said, have burned through 10 billion, and they're definitely not out of the woods. They could definitely go bankrupt, and that's definitely possible. All right. Well, tell me what you guys think about how Aptera is doing, and if you think that they are kind of sidestepping a lot of the pitfalls that the other EV companies have fallen into, and what you think their chances of long-term success are. All right, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.